What's going on, everybody? So today I want to talk about the current state of Diablo Immortal. Now, I made a couple videos over the past couple days talking about the legendary gem drama, you could call it, but basically a very critical response is needed, and maybe by the time this video comes out, they would have made it, but I don't want to focus on that too much. But I figured we're talking about what's going on in Diablo Immortal. Why are we in a position where we have a lot of people quitting the game? We have a lot of people not exactly enjoying the game, or there's a lot of criticism going around now because a lot of people think that everyone just hates this game. As soon as you start critiquing the game, you hate it. And even if you are critiquing the game and you're playing the game, then you are a shill for Blizzard. So you're both at the same time, all the time. So there's no balancing here. But I want to just note here why a lot of people, and kind of where we're at in the game, why a lot of people are critiquing the game. And that is mainly because if we just reflect on the past couple of updates here, what have we really gotten in the game since day one? First update, really that I felt like was a real meaningful update, class change. Class change has, in my opinion, been the single best update in this entire game, but you have to keep in mind that it's not for everyone, and that is a big, big problem. This update is basically a whole gigantic content system only if you wish to refarm all your legendary items and you have the time to experience all the classes, or just a casual player just wanting to try out everything. So the problem we have here is that the biggest update in existence isn't even for the whole player base. It's more of like you could say it's a whale update, because obviously you're going to be able to farm faster if you're a whale. But I don't think it's really a whale update. It's more of just a grinder update, which is actually a good thing. That's what we were asking for. So I'm not going to blame them too much for that. I think overall the update is great, but I will say that it was meant for maybe 10% of the player base that wants to take advantage of that. The other portion of the player base is either casual, so they can't actually get any benefit from this, or they just don't want to. They prefer to stay with their classes. I mean, look at someone like Darth, for example. He keeps going back to Necro because that is his class. He's not really interested. He wants to test out all the classes, but he's not really interested in staying on any of the other classes because Necro is his class. And I'm sure a lot of you out there feel that way. For myself here, I actually really enjoy testing out some of the classes, but even I just kind of want to sit on like a DH or a wizard. And of course, the system itself doesn't even work that amazingly because of the way the set items work. So that's the first update here. And I would say that it overall is a good update, but it didn't really provide any new content to the game. It just allowed you to recycle the already existing content in the game with different classes, right? All right, so we fast forward a little bit, and the kind of second update that was really, really solid was the first edition of the 36 new legendary items. And I believe that was actually added with the class change, but I'm going to treat these two as kind of separate points because I think that these are kind of two separate meaningful updates, even if they were at the same time. And I think that this is actually a really, really nice update. Once again, they added legendary items to the game, 36 new ones, 6 for each class. But once again, if we look at the actual reasonable amount of content that was added to the game, there was none, right? It was just a recycling of the already built builds. Most classes would take advantage of maybe 1, 2 legendary items, and the rest would be either completely garbage, or it would just add nothing new because, well, we're doing the same things over and over again, just slightly different. Now, I'm not going to bash legendary items too much because I think they're always good for the game, but there wasn't really a whole new addition of content in the game, or even a new experience in the game, simply for the fact that some classes didn't even get any difference in their kind of regular day-to-day activities. Then we fast forward a little bit and we get Fractured Plane, along with later on we get some new legendary items once again, which I actually really liked. Once again, Fractured Plane was an amazing event. The only problem was that, well, you didn't have a situation where you could really reasonably farm it because, well, all of the items there are, or all the rewards there are pretty mediocre compared to open world farming, which is just terrible. So that content wasn't really a repeatable source of content, but it was one of, if not my favorite piece of content added to the game. That is kind of like a mini game. So that was pretty cool. And then the legendary items came out once again, and in my opinion, these new sets of legendary items really imbalanced PvP. They made PvP so much more unbalanced, especially when you're playing like a DH or a wizard, because this is the set of legendary items that got you the helmet, the freezing helmet for the wizard, and the knockback multi-shot and those types of things, where it really messed up, really messed up the whole landscape of PvP, which is really unfortunate. I know whenever I enter PvP as a barb, as a monk, even now, it is really rough, simply for the fact that, well, I am a melee class. I get interrupted on every situation. I get outranged and CC'd more than I can CC. So that's kind of unfortunate. But again, I'm not going to bash legendary items too hard because I think overall it was a good update. I like new legendary items in the game. Then we fast forward a little bit, and I believe the next real update was Warband changes, which is completely 180 of what we wanted in the game. So now we've added a whole bunch of new content per se, but all of this new content was content that, one, either you really did not want in the game, or was just simply completely unfun for the most part, because they didn't make it, I guess, super easy for you to complete it. The Warband raid changes made it basically more complicated. It's not the worst, but it's not something that you can easily complete and have fun doing so. Right? Because you need to get these Warband activity points, and it's just grinding for more combat rating. You're not really getting any meaningful progression from it. It's literally just more of the same combat rating and more of the same Warband raids. The Purge the Depths in the Endless mode, I actually really like the Endless mode. I think it's actually a really fun part of the game. So that is one thing to kind of compliment on them. And I think the system in general is not a bad system. It is not a bad system at all. It is pure good for the game. But the problem is that they spent all this time creating a system that wasn't meant for the large majority of the people in the game. And on top of that, isn't actually that incredibly enjoyable to do. So those are two problems I have with that. And on top of the Warband update, they've added a couple of other quality of life. And then we come to the updates recently, which are, just some more standard kind of mediocre updates that are random battle pass seasons. And then the most recent update, which is the solo dungeons quality of life features, which I actually think is perhaps one of the best paths that they could take, but they didn't do it properly, in my opinion. So that leads us to today and where the game is at right now. So if you've noticed, as I've gone through all these updates, the biggest thing that I keep reiterating is that there wasn't really any new content in the game. And some people will say, oh, well, this is an ARPG. All you do is grind for better gear and then use that gear to, get to the higher stages or whatever. And you would be right. That is what I would consider kind of the sense of this game, and in general, probably what they wanted out of this game. The problem with this is that we're at the end game, and it is a mobile live service game. So we have nothing to do to grind for. We have every single Heliquary boss in the game, realistically. Granted, we're still pushing towards that, so we're not completely done yet. I will say that. We still have some challenge rifts to finish. I would say that the free-to-play player that's grinding is probably around that 160 challenge rift level, whereas I'm at like 180. I could probably push to 190 or so. So I'm almost done with challenge rifts myself. And then we have Hell 5, of course, which we have no reason to push even further. The set items and all that stuff isn't really going to get any better. We're kind of waiting on Paragon level. So where are we at the moment? We have no new content in the game since day one, except for the new dungeon. I guess I should have mentioned that with new sets. So that is one piece of new content. But again, has the same problems that some of the other pieces of content in the game has. So this is the reason why no one is really kind of excited to log in, because they haven't really addressed any of the issues that we've had since the beginning of the game. The major issues that we've had are, one, the game doesn't really feel rewarding for grinders. Now, I would say that they have pushed us kind of towards that way, and at the same time, it made it worse for them. Let me explain. So we've mentioned solo dungeons, and because of the dwindling player base and because of their lack of focus, we've lost a lot of our players. So they added solo dungeons because we can no longer farm dungeons as a group because it's hard to find groups. But then the solo dungeons are scaled to 4 players, so now you don't have a player base even to farm your dungeons, and you can do them. So basically, they've given you the ability to run dungeons again, but they've made it so much worse now because, well, you are trying to fight a dungeon as 1 player versus 4 scaled, monsters. So yes, they've basically given back the content that we were doing before, but worse. And that's kind of the issue right now. And so realistically, we need some sort of big change because again, I actually really enjoy the game. And for those of you that have made it to this part of the video, maybe the 1% of you, I would love to sit down and play a class and sit there and make build guides like I used to do for every single class. Make for the wizard, I did maybe 7 or 8 videos. And of course, we had some people that were just like, oh, you're just a mega trash can. And it is what it is. People will be toxic no matter what. But realistically, the players that are actually legitimately sitting here searching for Diablo Immortal content or just wanting to watch Diablo Immortal videos no longer exist. There's about 15 to 20% of the player base that watch my videos normally that are actually looking for regular Diablo Immortal content. The rest of the players are interested in just keeping up with the game, seeing how everyone is, and just being a part of the community. And there isn't really anything to make content on in that sense because there's nothing really new in the game. Obviously, we have a couple of things that we can talk about, like the drama, that seems to be an endless source of content there. But unfortunately, because they haven't added any new content within the game that is overarching and really envelops the whole player base, it's really hard to make videos on this new content because it really doesn't cater to everyone in the game, which is unfortunate. So we're at a place where you'll find yourself, your servers will be a lot lower and you'll have a lot less players in the game, and people are generally critiquing Blizzard because they haven't really done a great job of doing what we've kind of asked for. And people will say, oh, but you asked for a free-to-play way to get gems, and they've done that. You're right, they have done that. But what we asked for, at least what I asked for, wasn't a way to craft gems free to play. It was a way to craft gems free to play and make it at a reasonable pace on par with farming resonance, which they did not do. So there's still a lot of things that I wish the game had. And I still think that the game is arguably one of, if not the best ARPG on the mobile market right now, just in terms of how the game feels, how the game plays, and how smooth the game is. I've been playing in December for, a week or so now, and I've been playing quite a bit of that game. And I will say that the game is quite solid, but the game feels much worse to play than Diablo Immortal on a strictly kind of smooth, polished level. I think that Diablo Immortal feels much better, especially with the fact that the way the movement works and everything. But those games seem to have a lot of systems in place to kind of appreciate their free-to-play players a lot more than Diablo Immortal in terms of endgame grinding potential. You can log on every day and feel like you're making meaningful progress, even for their spenders, actually. And unfortunately, this game just doesn't have that. And so that's why we're in this kind of limbo area where the current state of Diablo Immortal is kind of just in this stale area. And I think that Blizzard and Diablo Immortal has a lot of potential going forward. It's really not that hard to make the game a lot better. It really isn't. The problem is that Blizzard doesn't want to do it or refuses to do it based on some of the feedback that we've been giving them. It's really, really not that hard to go ahead and just make a way to get free-to-play gems. They've added Telluric Pearls. They made such a complicated system for it when they could just add it, I don't know, in some sort of Battlegrounds mode. Easy. It's just so weird that that they have this kind of, I guess, feels like, and I don't know, so how would you classify it, but some sort of anger towards the player base where they don't want to add anything that truly is enjoyable. It's almost like they begrudgingly concede some certain points. Like, okay, I guess we'll give you solo dungeons, but we're going to make sure that you're not going to enjoy them as much as you possibly could if we made them much more, player friendly. And that's kind of what it seems. It feels like we're fighting against Blizzard for the betterment of the game, which is a terrible, terrible place to be. So that's kind of where the current state of the game is at, guys. I really, really think that the game has a lot of potential once again, and I think that it can be very, very easily changed. We're only about 4.5 months into the game cycle, which is very, very little for a mobile game. And I can see it changing so much. It just has to happen, and it's not. So we'll see how the player base and how all the updates roll out in the next couple of weeks. We have an update coming up, I believe. Let's see, we had a previous one on the 11th, so it is now the 23rd. So we should actually have an update coming up in the next couple of days. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long. So we'll see what happens. Maybe by the time this video rolls out, we will have had the additional update. I might do a double upload, but we'll have to see. I'm pretty excited to see what comes up in the future because, to be honest, there isn't really much to be excited about in the game at the moment because we've been doing the same thing for no progress. So let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. And if you did watch until this point, I appreciate that. And also, maybe I will drop a couple of Monk videos upcoming because I have been actually really enjoying the Monk. It's been a very, very enjoyable experience so far. So we'll see. You can even see I'm doing a normal dungeon for the Immortal dailies here because, well, I don't want to do a Hell 5 solo dungeon. It is a very really, really annoying experience in my opinion. So hopefully they do some real nice changes for us, some quality of life changes, or maybe just add some sort of way to grind the game. Or if you watch my previous video or the video after this, I'm not quite sure yet, they might add seasons. And I'll talk about that in another video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.